Life eventually reveals a quiet truth that the mind often resists. Not everyone who walks beside you is meant to continue the journey with you, and accepting this can feel both heavy and freeing at the same time. The heaviness comes from attachment, from shared memories and expectations, while the relief comes from allowing reality to unfold as it is. This reflection is not about rejection, judgment, or closing the heart. It is about learning how to release with awareness and compassion. Buddhism teaches that clinging to what has changed is a source of suffering, while understanding impermanence opens the way to peace. When resistance softens, the heart no longer struggles against endings. Letting go is not an act of loss or weakness. It is an act of clarity and inner honesty. It creates space for calm, restores balance, and allows the path ahead to reveal itself naturally. Change is not something that happens only at certain moments in life. It is happening constantly, whether we notice it or not. In Buddhism, this understanding is considered essential because it explains why holding on too tightly often leads to pain. Everything that comes into existence moves through phases of beginning, transformation, and ending. Nothing remains exactly as it was, including relationships, emotions, and circumstances. People enter our lives at different points, each connection shaped by the conditions present at that time. Shared experiences, personal growth, environment, and direction all influence how long someone walks beside us. A relationship that felt supportive in one stage may no longer align in another. This does not mean it was wrong or meaningless. It simply means that life has moved forward. Suffering often begins when we expect what is changing to remain fixed. The mind forms attachments to how things were and resists how they are becoming. When someone changes or moves away, the heart may interpret it as loss or rejection. Buddhism teaches that this pain does not arise because change occurred, but because the mind refused to accept it. Resistance turns natural movement into inner conflict. Understanding change as a natural law helps soften this resistance. When we stop viewing change as a failure or mistake, the emotional struggle begins to ease. Relationships are no longer measured by how long they last, but by what they offer during the time they exist. Each connection serves a purpose, even if that purpose is temporary. Change also allows growth. As people evolve, their needs, values, and paths may shift. Holding on to an old version of a relationship can prevent both people from moving forward. Buddhism encourages acceptance of change because it allows life to unfold without unnecessary tension. Accepting change does not mean becoming indifferent or detached from care. It means understanding that clinging does not preserve connection, it only preserves suffering. When we recognize that impermanence is woven into life itself, expectations begin to loosen. The heart learns to appreciate what is present without demanding that it stay forever. This understanding creates emotional flexibility, allowing us to meet endings with wisdom rather than resistance. Seeing change clearly does not remove sadness, but it prevents bitterness. It allows space for gratitude instead of regret. When we accept that change is natural, we no longer fight what unfolds. We begin to move with life rather than against it. In this way, understanding the nature of change becomes the first step toward letting go with peace rather than pain. Holding on can feel like an act of loyalty or devotion, but beneath it there is often fear. The fear may be quiet and unspoken, yet it shapes the way the heart reacts. It can be the fear of being alone, the fear of losing what feels familiar, or the fear of stepping into an uncertain future. When fear leads the heart, holding on becomes a way to protect oneself from discomfort rather than a true expression of love. Clinging to people who no longer choose to stay creates inner tension. The mind senses that something has changed, yet the heart resists accepting it. This resistance feels like tightening around something that is already moving away. The effort to keep things the same drains emotional energy and creates constant unease. Instead of peace, there is anxiety. Instead of closeness, there is strain. Buddhism explains that suffering does not come from separation alone. Separation is a natural event. People part, circumstances shift, and paths diverge. The deeper pain arises when attachment refuses to accept this reality. Attachment demands that people remain the same, continue choosing us, and meet expectations they may no longer share. When these demands are not met, the mind reacts with frustration, sadness, or self-blame. Holding on also places pressure on both sides of a relationship. The one who clings feels anxious and unfulfilled, while the one being held may feel restricted or misunderstood. Love becomes heavy instead of supportive. This heaviness does not come from care itself, but from the fear driving it. Buddhism teaches that love rooted in fear leads to suffering because it tries to control what cannot be controlled. Another reason holding on hurts is because it pulls attention away from the present. The mind becomes focused on what was or what should be, rather than what is. Memories are replayed, hopes are imagined, and comparisons are made. This mental activity keeps the heart trapped in longing instead of allowing it to settle. The present moment, where peace is possible, is overlooked. Letting go feels frightening because it removes the illusion of control. Yet holding on is far more painful because it keeps the heart locked in struggle. Buddhism encourages releasing attachment not to remove care, but to remove suffering. When attachment softens, love becomes spacious and gentle. The heart no longer depends on others to feel complete. Understanding why holding on hurts allows compassion toward oneself. The desire to cling is not a flaw, it is a response to fear. Recognizing this helps dissolve self-judgment and opens the door to healing. When fear is seen clearly, it loses its power. By releasing attachment, the heart regains balance. Peace does not come from keeping everything the same, but from learning to allow change without resistance. When holding on ends, the mind relaxes, and the pain that came from struggle begins to fade. Love is often misunderstood as something that must be held tightly in order to survive. Many people grow up believing that caring deeply means holding on, protecting, and securing another person's presence in their life. Yet Buddhism offers a gentler and more honest understanding. Love does not require ownership. True care does not demand control. Love, in its healthiest form, allows space, movement, and freedom. When love is free, it feels open and supportive. It allows people to grow, change, and move through different phases of life without fear. This kind of love does not insist on permanence or demand certainty. It understands that every person is on their own path, shaped by experiences, lessons, and inner growth that cannot be forced or predicted. Freedom within love is not distance, it is respect. Possession begins when love becomes mixed with fear. Fear of loss, fear of abandonment, and fear of change slowly reshape care into attachment. At this point, love no longer asks, "What allows growth?" but instead asks, "How do I make this stay the same?" Expectations appear, and unspoken demands form. The other person is expected to remain consistent, familiar, and reassuring, even as life naturally moves forward. Attachment places a heavy burden on relationships. It asks another person to carry responsibility for one's emotional stability and sense of security. This pressure is often invisible but deeply felt. The one who is attached may feel anxious and uncertain, constantly watching for signs of distance or change. The one being held may feel restricted, misunderstood, or slowly pulled away from their own direction. Both sides suffer, even though care is present. Buddhism teaches that attachment is not love itself, but a condition added to it. Love is spacious and kind. Attachment is tight and fearful. When these two are confused, love becomes painful. The intention may still be care, but the experience turns into tension. This is why love mixed with possession often leads to disappointment, resentment, and exhaustion. Expectations are a key part of possession. When we expect others to remain unchanged, we deny their humanity. Growth is natural. Perspectives shift. Priorities evolve. Demanding that someone stay the same is asking them to stop living fully. Buddhism reminds us that suffering arises when we demand permanence from what is impermanent. Relationships are living processes, not fixed structures. Letting go does not mean the absence of love. It means the removal of fear from love. When control is released, care becomes lighter. The heart no longer tightens around outcomes. Instead of watching for signs of loss, attention returns to presence. Appreciation replaces anxiety. Gratitude replaces demand. Love becomes something that flows, rather than something that must be defended. Many people fear that letting go means forgetting or devaluing what was shared. Buddhism offers a different perspective. Letting go is not erasing connection. It is honoring it without clinging. Memories remain. Lessons remain. Appreciation remains. What dissolves is the need to possess or control what no longer belongs to the present moment. Love without possession also includes compassion for oneself. When attachment fades, self-worth is no longer tied to being chosen or needed by another. Inner stability begins to come from within rather than from external validation. This creates emotional independence without emotional coldness. One can care deeply without being consumed by fear. When love is freed from control, it becomes more resilient. It can exist even when distance appears. It can remain kind even when paths separate. This does not remove sadness from endings, but it removes bitterness. The heart grieves without hardening. It releases without resentment. This is a form of maturity that Buddhism gently points toward. Letting someone go transforms love into understanding. Understanding that people are not possessions. Understanding that connection does not require permanence. Understanding that holding too tightly can harm what we wish to protect. When this understanding settles, love no longer clings to form. It becomes quiet, respect for what was, what is, and what must change. Love without possession is not weaker than attachment. It is stronger. It does not collapse when circumstances shift. It does not demand guarantees. It remains grounded in care while allowing life to move freely. This is the kind of love that brings peace rather than pain and freedom rather than fear. Letting go is often misunderstood as something that must be done with force, anger, or emotional distance. Many people believe that in order to move on, they must find fault, assign responsibility, or justify their pain by blaming someone else. Yet this approach keeps the heart tied to what has already passed. Blame does not create freedom. It creates a lingering connection rooted in resentment, replay, and emotional weight. When blame is present, the mind stays focused on what went wrong instead of what is unfolding now. Conversations are replayed internally. Questions repeat themselves without resolution. The heart remains engaged with the past, even while trying to move forward. In this way, blame becomes another form of attachment. It keeps the relationship alive internally, even though it has ended externally. Letting go without blame begins with understanding that people leave for many reasons, most of which are not personal. Lives move in different directions. Priorities change. Growth leads people toward new responsibilities, environments, and understandings of themselves. These shifts do not require villains or victims. They are part of how life unfolds. When we stop personalizing every ending, the emotional burden begins to lift. Blame often arises as a way to protect the self from pain. If someone else is at fault, then the loss feels easier to explain. Yet this explanation comes at a cost. It hardens the heart and delays healing. Buddhism teaches that clinging to resentment binds us to suffering. Releasing blame is not about excusing harm or denying pain. It is about choosing not to carry unnecessary weight. Another reason blame feels tempting is because it gives the mind something to hold on to. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. Not knowing exactly why something ended can feel unsettling. Blame creates a false sense of clarity. It gives the mind a story, even if that story keeps the heart restless. Letting go without blame requires courage, because it asks us to accept uncertainty without filling the space with judgment. When blame softens, compassion becomes possible. Compassion does not mean agreement or reconciliation. It means recognizing that every person is shaped by their own struggles, limitations, and stages of growth. People act from where they are, not from where we wish they could be. Seeing this clearly reduces the urge to hold on to anger. Letting go without blame also involves turning inward with honesty. Instead of focusing on what someone else failed to do, attention shifts to what is being felt now. Sadness, disappointment, and grief are allowed without assigning fault. These emotions are part of the human experience. When they are met directly, without judgment, they move through naturally. This form of letting go creates emotional space. The heart no longer needs to defend itself through resentment. Energy that was spent replaying the past becomes available for healing and growth. Peace does not come from being right about what happened. It comes from no longer needing to revisit it. Releasing blame is ultimately an act of self-respect. It is choosing inner freedom over emotional attachment to pain. It allows the heart to rest instead of remaining vigilant. When blame is released, clarity replaces confusion, and understanding replaces resistance. Letting go without blame does not mean forgetting. It means remembering without bitterness. Lessons are kept, but wounds are not reopened. The past is acknowledged, not carried. This is how the heart untangles itself gently and completely. Letting go without blame becomes a turning point. It marks the shift from suffering to understanding, from resistance to acceptance. When blame falls away, the heart is finally free to move forward, unburdened and at peace. Every connection you experience in life leaves something behind. Even when a relationship ends, it does not disappear without meaning. Buddhism teaches that nothing arises without purpose, and nothing passes without leaving an imprint. When you look back with awareness rather than pain, you begin to see that each person who entered your life offered a lesson, whether through kindness, challenge, closeness, or separation. Some connections teach patience. They show you how to stay calm when things do not move at your desired pace, how to listen rather than rush, and how to remain steady when outcomes are uncertain. These relationships may have tested your endurance, but they also strengthened your capacity to remain present through discomfort. Without them, patience would remain an idea rather than a lived experience. Other connections reveal boundaries. They help you understand where your responsibility ends and where another person's begins. Through these experiences, you learn what you can give freely and what you must protect. Boundaries are not walls, they are points of clarity. Letting go teaches that it is not necessary to sacrifice your well-being to maintain connection. When a relationship crosses into imbalance, releasing it restores respect for yourself. Some relationships show you what needs healing within you. They reflect fears, insecurities, or emotional habits that were previously hidden. A strong reaction to someone leaving may reveal attachment, fear of abandonment, or the habit of tying self-worth to being chosen. These insights are not punishments, they are opportunities. When you let go consciously, you can observe these patterns without judgment and begin the work of healing them. Buddhism encourages learning without clinging. This means allowing experiences to teach you without demanding that they stay. Wisdom is not gained by holding on to the source of the lesson, but by integrating what was learned. When you cling to a relationship because of what it taught you, pain remains. When you take the lesson and release the form, peace becomes possible. Letting go also teaches humility. It reminds you that not everything is within your control. You cannot force timing, direction, or growth. Accepting this softens the ego and reduces inner struggle. Instead of asking why something ended, the heart begins to ask what understanding remains. This shift moves attention from regret to reflection. Another lesson of letting go is gratitude. When attachment fades, appreciation becomes clearer. You can acknowledge what was shared without needing it to continue. Gratitude transforms endings from failures into chapters that have completed their purpose. The relationship is no longer judged by its ending, but valued for what it offered while it existed. Letting go teaches resilience. Each release strengthens your ability to adapt and move forward without hardening. You learn that loss does not destroy you, and endings do not erase your capacity to love again. This resilience is quiet but powerful. It allows the heart to remain open even after disappointment. Clinging keeps pain alive because it resists reality. Conscious letting go allows pain to resolve. It does not deny sadness or longing, but it does not build an identity around them. The mind stops replaying what could have been and begins to accept what is. From this acceptance, clarity grows. Even difficult endings serve growth when met with awareness. They teach discernment, self-respect, and emotional maturity. They show you the difference between love and dependence, between care and fear. These lessons shape future connections, making them healthier and more balanced. Letting go also teaches trust. Trust in life's unfolding. Trust that what aligns with your growth will remain, and what does not will naturally fall away. This trust reduces anxiety about loss and increases confidence in the present moment. In Buddhism, wisdom is not collected through accumulation, but through release. Each time you let go with awareness, the heart becomes lighter. You carry understanding instead of resentment, insight instead of regret. In this way, endings are not wasted. They become teachers, guiding you toward greater clarity, compassion, and peace. When you let go consciously, you do not lose what mattered. You lose only what was weighing you down. What remains is the lesson, quietly integrated into who you are becoming. When you finally stop holding on to those who no longer remain in your life, something quiet but powerful begins to happen within you. At first, it may feel like emptiness, as though something familiar has been removed. Yet with time and awareness, this emptiness reveals itself as space. This space is not a lack, it is openness. It is the natural room the heart needs in order to breathe, settle, and regain balance. Holding on requires constant effort. It keeps the mind busy with memories, expectations, and imagined futures that are no longer aligned with reality. When this effort ends, the heart is no longer strained. Energy that was once spent maintaining emotional tension becomes available for calm and clarity. Peace does not rush in all at once, but it begins to appear gently in moments of stillness and relief. This inner space allows clarity to arise. Without the noise of attachment, thoughts become quieter and emotions less overwhelming. Decisions are made with greater ease because they are no longer driven by fear of loss or desire for control. Clarity does not mean certainty about everything. It means being grounded enough to move forward without confusion or inner conflict. Making space through letting go also allows healthier connections to form. When attachment loosens, relationships are no longer built on need or fear, but on mutual presence and respect. You begin to recognize which connections feel supportive rather than draining. This discernment is not judgment, it is awareness. By releasing what no longer aligns, you naturally attract what does. Letting go is often misunderstood as isolation or withdrawal. In truth, it opens the heart rather than closing it. When the heart is no longer crowded with unresolved attachments, it becomes more receptive. Kindness flows more easily. Listening becomes deeper. Presence becomes more genuine. Openness replaces guardedness. Buddhism teaches that what truly belongs in your life does not require force. It remains through ease, not tension. Connections that are meant to stay do not need to be chased or convinced. They unfold naturally, supported by shared direction and mutual choice. When you stop forcing what has already moved on, you align with the natural rhythm of life. Releasing what has passed also brings emotional balance. Without clinging to old patterns, the mind rests more often in the present moment. This presence reduces anxiety about the future and regret about the past. Peace grows not because everything becomes perfect, but because resistance fades. Making space for peace is an act of trust. It trusts that life knows how to unfold without constant interference. It trusts that what is meant for you will arrive in its own time. This trust softens the heart and reduces the need to control outcomes. As space opens, self-understanding deepens. You become more aware of your needs, values, and direction. Without the influence of attachments that no longer fit, your inner voice becomes clearer. This clarity supports choices that honor your well-being and growth. Peace is not something added from the outside. It arises naturally when inner conflict dissolves. Letting go removes the obstacles that block this peace. It does not erase memory or meaning. It simply removes the strain of holding on to what cannot remain. Letting go becomes an act of alignment rather than loss. It aligns you with presence, with clarity, and with the flow of life itself. When space is created, peace fills it quietly and steadily, not as an achievement, but as a return to what was always available. Making space for peace allows you to move forward without carrying unnecessary weight. It allows the heart to remain open and steady, ready for what is meant to come. In releasing what has already moved on, you give yourself the freedom to meet life with ease, balance, and trust. As this reflection comes to a close, allow yourself to rest in the understanding that nothing was taken from you. What was released had already completed its place in your life. Letting go does not erase meaning, it preserves it without the weight of attachment. When the heart stops clinging, it regains its natural steadiness. Peace grows quietly when resistance ends. It does not demand effort or explanation. It appears when the mind no longer tries to hold what has already moved on. In this openness, clarity returns and trust deepens. Life continues to unfold, and you are free to meet it without fear. Carry this understanding gently forward. Allow connections to come and go without tightening your grip. What truly belongs will remain without force. What leaves does so to make space. In this space, calm settles, balance returns, and the heart learns how to move on with ease.